Hi, welcome to Middleware Friday, episode 84, December 7th, 2018. Integrate with Google Storage using Azure Functions. So in this episode, I'd like to talk about a scenario where I had to integrate with the Google Cloud Platform, to be specific with a Google Storage. The scenario was that I was helping a colleague getting files from BizTalk Server into a function and from a function into Google Storage. So BizTalk Server was on one end from one company that had to send files to another company, but that other company was using Google as a platform. So that's the Google Cloud Platform. And specifically, they had a Google Storage account with a bucket. So that's kind of similar to the concept of Microsoft Azure having also a storage service, but then the bucket is not, it's called a container. So in this specific scenario, in this episode, I will focus more on the message from Azure Functions going into the Google Storage bucket. So we're integrating with the Google Cloud Platform. So that's one of the bigger cloud companies, together with Microsoft Azure, Amazon, AWS, you could say the IBM Cloud and Alibaba. So that's kind of the big five if you look to revenue and market shares. Microsoft and Amazon are pretty par. That Google Cloud Platform is offered by Google itself, and basically that Google Cloud Platform runs on the infrastructure that's also being used for their search engine and also for YouTube. So if you look specifically at the cloud storage, it's similar to what I've said to Microsoft Azure Storage. I would say AWS S3. So it's on the Google Cloud Platform where you as a user can store your data or access your data. So similar to the other cloud providers having storage, they also offer an API, and it's offered in price performance across, in the case of Google Cloud Storage, storage classes. You can get, and you can get that data from any of those storage classes, and it's designed to be secure and durable. But it's, I think, for all the storage services for the various cloud providers, that would be the same thing. So within Google Storage, you create a bucket, which is similar to in Azure Storage in blobs, you create a container. So this bucket has a few properties. It has a globally unique name, a location, where the bucket is, and a storage class. So the storage class, there are four of them: regional, nearline, cold line. And these storage classes are similar to the replication model you see with the Microsoft Azure Storage. And you can also have that bucket to be geo-redundant, highly available, and accessible, similar to what you could see with the S3 in Amazon or in Microsoft Azure. So it's quite pretty simple. But in our scenario, we had to send those files to such a bucket. For that, you also have to create some access to your bucket. You can do this in Azure. You have those policies and SaaS keys and stuff. With Google, you can, through the Google Identity and Access Management, create a service account, and then specifically give that service account access to the Google Storage. It's pretty granular. So I'll say, okay, storage, and I'll say, okay, you can do, with this service account, you're a storage object creator. So you can insert data into the bucket, and that would be sufficient also in this scenario. Once you set up this security settings for that Google Storage bucket, you basically get this file, which you can then download, a file that contains the credentials. So that can be in P12 format or in a JSON format. And this file, this with the credentials, you can view this as a secret, and you can store this in an Azure Key Vault. So in your settings files of your functions, so this is a kind of this shows it from a local perspective. If you locally have your function and you would run it, it will does go to a Key Vault URI, as you can see here, and also in the settings there's a name of the bucket. So the Google profile is more or less than that file, and I'll give you an example of it later, which you can access. That access of that file, I'll put it in Key Vault. So from Azure Function, you can get access to Key Vault, and where you can access that secret. So from a perspective of security, it's better than have that profile in your settings, app settings file of your Azure Function. So in Key Vault, you would give that particular function access to the key vault and enabling that to get secrets. And you can store that secret, and you can see it in the screenshot here. And that's kind of your Google profile that's being set right there. And that's where the secret identifier is basically an identifier from, okay, a URI. This is where you can access that secret through your function app. If you look in general to write to cloud storage from a perspective, let's say Google, AWS, and Microsoft Azure, through perspective, let's say you have got a logic app and you want to write files to any of these storages. Azure storage is pretty simple because you have a connector for it, but you can leverage functions to write to AWS, to an S3 storage bucket, or to a Google storage bucket. So there's various ways you can see this. It's pretty native in Azure to use those connectors or bindings in the functions, but there are no bindings or connectors available to those kind of cloud platforms, but you can do this using a function. So let me demonstrate and walk you through a bit how you could send files or send messages to a storage function that would then send those to a Google storage bucket. So here I've created a function in function 1, so that's full .NET standard. You can also do this in V2, trying to do .NET Core. It does work locally, but then if you upload it or deploy it into the hosting environment for versions 2, it does go a bit weary with the fact that it's expected to be beta. So there's something off. Maybe that was going to be corrected later on, but with version 1, you definitely can build it locally, test it locally, deploy it, and it will also run in that environment in version 1. So what happens is you get the message in, you stream it into a stream, and you later on here in the Google uploads use that. So before that, you see some code to get access to your key vault. So to get that Google secret, that's basically credentials. That code is, you can find in the various blogs. Jeff Holland wrote about it. There's others writing about how you can access key vault from a function. And this is a way to do it. And here you can see setting up the credentials, basically get connection to the Google storage and then use the upload and then send that file to the Google bucket. So if I run this locally, so you have test tools and everything for Visual Studio to enable you to build a function locally, but also test and then run it. I'm also using even local storage emulators, etc. But this enables you to test it and debug it locally, which I would strongly advise you to do so. Well, you can use the in-browser experience building functions, but that's okay for POC or some experimenting. But let's say this is, and for us, it was a production-ready function. We created it first in Visual Studio. So if I go to the Postman, I can simulate the fact that I want to send a message to this function. So I click send. I go back to my Azure Functions tooling locally, and you can see, okay, data received, key vault, secret received, connection to Google storage. This is the response back from that storage account, and that's about it. So you can see this also as a result in your Postman. So let's switch to the function running in Azure. So it's deployed there, and as you can see, here it is. Again, I could send a message. Let me just do something like this. Send it to the function app, and it will give me a response back. And here you can see the logs, similar to what you see locally. Also through, and this is more a version 1 environment, you can also look at some of the, and I've done this already a few times, you see the similar output in the logs. The secret I talked about is in Azure Key Vault. Here you get that Google profile, which is the file you get once you create that once you create an account in Google for the identity and access management. And that file, I've got it here as well, looks a little bit like this. So once you create that file, you can choose between P12 and JSON, and this is the JSON output, and this is what you need to give to this method, the credentials, to set up this account or connectivity with Google Storage. So this is the Google Storage bucket. Let me refresh. There's a few times I've uploaded a message. So here's C1. Let me click on this one, for instance. This is another one, functions 1. But as you can see, all these messages end up here in the Google bucket. So I'll run you through a bit how messages sent to a function that's got an HTTP trigger basically, or an endpoint where you can send messages to. So you can do this also from a BizTalk perspective, and then those messages are being stored in a Google Storage bucket. So kind of the takeaways or stuff is that you can integrate with Google and AWS using functions. And so far I found out that it does pretty well work with version 1 functions, so full .NET, while with the .NET Core I struggle a bit, but also with environments that hosting locally was not the same as hosting it in Azure. So I would say it doesn't quite work pretty seamlessly as in with version functions 1. And if you want to do this, or then you do require some AWS and Google knowledge if you want to try this, setting up the accounts, setting up the services, etc. So you need those accounts as well. If you want to try this out, there are free trial accounts with AWS and Google as well, so you can try this out. And you can use key vaults for secrets. So that's kind of a best practice within Microsoft, to setting those secrets centrally and prevent of having those settings in your app settings. So this is the way you can do it, and there are examples enough how you can get from an Azure function access to the key vault. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and also BizTalk 360 for being a great host. Keep watching our episodes. We very much appreciate that. So you'll see another great episode next week from Kent Weir, and after that I will be back with another episode. So I'll leave you with the music credits.